Guides for Brides, the wedding podcast. My name's Nikita from Guides for Brides, and in this episode we'll be chatting about one of the most important parts of the wedding day for a lot of couples out there. We've covered how to find the perfect wedding photographer in a previous episode on this podcast. But what about how to make the most of the photographer or the person that's taking the photos? How to feel confident whilst those photos are being taken, and how to build a relationship with your photographer, especially if you're quite shy or you don't like having your photo taken. I know a lot of us out there can feel a bit self-conscious when it comes to taking photos, and especially when you're paying a lot to have these special wedding moments captured forever, you want to not only look your best, but also feel your best and feel comfortable with the person that's behind the camera, as you'll probably be spending quite a lot of time with them. So to help me with this episode, I'm joined by an expert panel of wedding photographers who all have different styles and methods of taking photos. Let's head over to the Zoom call. Hello to my lovely panel today. I'm so excited for you guys to join us on Guide to Brides, the wedding podcast. And what I'll do is I'll let you introduce yourselves to our listeners, starting with some familiar voices who have been on the podcast before, Sam and Steve.
Am I doing that bit? Okay, yeah. I'm doing that apparently. So hi, we're Sam and Steve Vaughan, otherwise known as Sam and Steve Photography. And we're what we call documentary wedding photographers. And we're based here in North Oxfordshire in Bicester. And we always work together as a husband and wife team. We've done about 400 weddings now together, probably. And we specialise in telling the story of a wedding day in a natural, uncontrolled, unforced way, really. And we're proud that we've been Guide to Brides finalists for the Customer Service Awards now for 5 years, and that we won two the final awards as well. So great to be here and great to see all you guys. Thanks for asking us.
Brilliant. Thanks to you both. And next we'll go to David Bostock. David, could you introduce yourself and your photography style, please?
Yeah, I'm David Bostock. I'm primarily a wedding photographer. I'm based in a beautiful little village called King Sutton, just south of Banbury. So specialising in wedding photography, really a blend of sort of documentary and I would say fine art fashion is my style. I've been shooting professionally since 2008, hence all the grey hair. And so I've probably shot sort of well over 500 weddings now all over the country and London. I also have a second business, which is a boudoir photography business, which I think we might touch on a little bit later, called Ellie Sanderson Boudoir Photography.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thanks, David. And last but not least, we've got Laura Shaw. Laura, take it away with your intro.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Laura Shaw. I am a wedding and motherhood photographer based in West Sussex. I recently was absolutely honoured to win the Guides for Brides Customer Service Award, and I am just very privileged and honoured to have that accolade, and I am passionate about helping couples feel more relaxed in front of the camera for their wedding day.
Amazing. Thank you all for your wonderful introductions. It's clear that we've got a really vast range of experience here and sort of different aspects as well. So from boudoir to motherhood to pure wedding photography. So that's fantastic. It's really important to mention that, as some of you have already said, you are all award-winning photographers here. So you've got some real experience behind you and a totally expert panel. So this is hopefully going to be a fantastic discussion. So I think the best place to start would be chronologically. So let's look at before the wedding day itself. The pre-wedding or the engagement shoot has seemed to have taken off in the last few years. Laura, I'm going to go to you on this one. Do you offer pre-wedding shoots, and why do you think that they can be so useful in helping couples build confidence before their wedding day?
I absolutely do offer pre-wedding shoot for all of my couples, regardless of how many hours they book me for. I think it's fantastic information for me and for them. And I don't think I've done one pre-wedding shoot where they haven't finished and said, oof, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. And it just demystifies how the process works. I feel people are very nervous in front of the camera and they don't know quite how to carry their bodies. And without heaping on loads of pressure, you can give people movement instructions and just hold hands, walk in that direction, just talk about your first ever date. And you can get some amazing shots just from those simple instructions, and people don't even realize that you're taking the photos if you're quite far away, and they end up with a beautiful set of photographs which they can keep forever, that just showcase their relationship. So it's not just about their marriage, it's about their relationship, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I think also that when people think they're going to stand in front of a camera, they feel like they're going to have very precise instructions. And I don't think that helps people, because that makes them a little bit more nervous. I offer a posing guide, which isn't really a posing guide, but it's just information about how to hold your body, how to stand up straight. So just some basics just to start with. And that's available for everyone to have a look on my website if they need that. I think it's important to have that session so that I can see as well. Like, for instance, I've had a couple where the groom-to-be, he blinked so much more than the average person. And having that information before the wedding was vital, because it just meant I just upped my shutter speed whenever I was photographing them for their portraits, because it meant that I got more photos of him with his eyes open rather than shut, which if I hadn't have done that pre-wedding shoot, I would never have known. But yeah, I've done quite a lot already this year. It's been fantastic.
Okay. Also, I think it's a good way of the couple getting to know you better prior to the wedding, so it helps them feel a lot more comfortable with you on the day, because they've seen you, you've had a chat, they've spoken to you, you've spoken to them, so you've spoken about each other, so it's not just on the day they're meeting you in face to face properly for the first time. You've had that experience for the hours photo shoot beforehand, which is important, I think, for helping them feel more relaxed on the big day.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Yeah. And David, do you offer pre-wedding shoots, or what's your view on them?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to offer them to everybody that booked me, and now people can opt for them if they want them, and they're included in my top collection as well. I love doing them. I used to always do them at the wedding venue, actually, during a sort of quieter time of the week. But I do them more and more up near my studio now, because then I get a chance to take them out into the cornfields and the rapeseed fields at this time of the year, and the bluebell fields, etc. And so we get some really, really great sort of iconic shots. And then I can pop them in the studio and do, a couple of nice portraits of them as well. Universally, people love the results and they love the experience. And generally, it just means that when I tap them on the shoulder on the day and say, guys, should we go for our couple shots, they're actually looking forward to it rather than dreading it. I always say it's a great thing to do, and it's really, really obvious to me as a photographer if they've had a pre-wedding shoot, either with me or somebody else, because how they stand, how they are with their bodies, etc., how they are with each other, is completely different. So I think it's a really good thing to do, and I'd recommend it to everybody.
Absolutely. And Laura, you mentioned about how it's really great for them to get comfortable in front of the camera. Have you had any instances where couples have literally been like, I don't know what I'm doing, I hate being photographed? Like, how do you deal with that?
I had a similar, that very instant crop up a couple of weeks ago. I met a couple at their wedding venue, and they were having tea inside the venue. And I was like, where are my cameras? And I walked in, I'm like, right, come on then, guys, let's go and take some photos. And the groom was like shocked. And he was like, what are we doing? What's going on? And then his fiance was like, I didn't tell you because I thought you'd be a bit worried and panicky about it. And his face is just like draining of colour. And I was like, oh, right. Okay, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to talk about that. And he was like, no, it's fine. Yep, we'll go and take some photos. I just don't like having my photo taken. And I was like, that's okay. A lot of people say that. Don't worry. We'll just, finish your coffee. We'll go up and we'll just have some fun. And he was pretty nervous, and I don't think they were very comfortable with public displays of affection, so to get them to actually come close together and touch each other was quite a challenge. And at one point, just to kind of really try and lighten the mood, I said to him, just grab her boob, just give her a little grab. And he just wet himself laughing. His fiance just kind of fell into his arms. They had this lovely moment, and I got some amazing shots. And I did actually deliver the boob shot just because it would just, I knew it'd make him laugh. And yeah, at the end of that, the bride to be messaged me and said he's absolutely glowing about his photo shoot. He had nothing but good things to say. So thank you so much. And it was wonderful. I was really nervous beforehand when they said that. I was like, oh, no one's ever done this to me before. I'm not sure if he's actually going to be okay. But yeah, it worked out really well. It was great.
Have the rest of you had any sort of similar experiences by couples have said they've just been so anxious?
Well, it's funny, you've got to judge it couple by couple. There's no point in doing the same thing with everybody. You wouldn't do the same thing with a couple in their 60s as you would with a couple in their 20s necessarily. But if the relationship's building and it's going well, I would do things like piggybacks and all that kind of stuff, and they are just killing themselves laughing. I had one where I was saying, well, I want you to go on his back, and he was standing there just talking to me, and she was running at him. She just knocked him flying. He just went polaxed, and they were just on the floor just killing themselves laughing. And it was just so funny. And I do tell that story to all the people I do that couple shop with. I always say to them, look, I would never ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself. It's not about putting you into awkward positions. It's making you as natural as possible, because on the day I want to photograph you in the same sort of way. I want you to be looking at each other, not at me. It's all about you. It's not about gurning at the camera, etc. It's having a very, very natural. So when people say your shots look really, really natural, and I say, well, it's sort of post photojournalism, if you like. It's you've set the moment for it to happen, and it's your job to capture it.
I think it's exactly that, and a lot of the couples we photograph, they ask, can we bring our kids along if they've got kids already, or can we bring the dog? And we always say yes, because it's a shoot for them to feel comfortable and relaxed and enjoy. And if they want to bring the kids or the family or the grandparents or whatever, that's up to them, really. We're happy to work around that, really. And from a location point of view, we've got various places around our way that we know and we suggest. But if it's a walk along the canal, if it's their back garden, it doesn't matter, as long as it's somewhere where we can get some reasonable light, ideally, something of interest from a foreground and background perspective. And all we do really is just try and make them laugh, really. We tell Steve, I've got a whole repertoire of dad jokes that I'll reel out if necessary. And as you say, we just try and make them not worry about the day, really. And one of the things I say is, look at each other, you're better looking than I am, which is true, probably. My wife's nodding.
That's the key thing. I think the key thing there that you've all pointed out is like laughter. And do you find that, the sort of practice run of the engagement or pre-wedding shoot is really useful to helping you understand what makes them laugh and what makes them feel more comfortable and relaxed, I think? Because I don't think it's necessarily about being really confident in front of the camera. It's about being able to relax. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, the sort of ultra confident, it's all about me kind of couples probably don't book our kind of photography anyway, because they're going to want an hour and a half of photos of them on their day just for their Insta and everything else. And that's not really what we're about. So the couples we tend to book tend to be shyer, a bit more lacking in sort of self-confidence sometimes and self-image belief, if you like. So that's where the sort of pre-wedding shoot is so useful, really. It's just a chance for them to feel comfortable about the process, comfortable with us, and know that it's not going to be us dragging them away for an hour and a half from their friends and family on their day.
You mentioned that your style is more that sort of fashion...
Fine art, yeah.
Fine art, yeah. Fine art photography, that kind of aspect is do you find that couples who have a pre-wedding shoot for you are camera confident?
Not always. No, not always. But I do have some that are, some that are spending a lot of money on their wedding, are spending a lot of money on a wedding dress. I'm doing a massive wedding at the Savoy on Sunday. That'll be one of those. It's a £15,000 Greek wedding dress, and it's going to be a whole kind of 250 guests job. So that'll be. She is very confident in front of the camera. So you do get it sometimes, but often it's your job as a photographer to work with everybody. Yeah. Some people absolutely, as Laura said, just absolutely hate having their photograph taken, and just can't stand it. So I find that the really important thing about a pre-wedding shoot for the relationship of photographer and client is to find some common ground. Find out what they do. What do they like? Have they got a dog? Do they love scuba diving? Do they love skiing? That kind of stuff as well, because there's always some common ground. And that really helps build that relationship on the day. So you can talk about, I talk about things like that really on the day, and things that we've got in common and things that we've sort of built up that sort of mutual thing about. Also talk about where they're going on honeymoon and what they're going to do. And it just works for me.
One of the things I've started doing this year is sending out a questionnaire to do with just absolute nonsense, really. It's your celebrity crush, your bucket list item, something on your bucket list, your death row meal, things like that. And it's been really funny actually to see people's responses on that, and like things like celebrity crushes. Somebody mentioned Kristoff from Frozen. One of the brides has a crush on an animation. I just can't quite get over that. But it's one of those things that helps. Like David says, it builds that relationship, so people feel comfortable and you find that common ground between you, which really helps. Like with that very awkward couple where the groom to be was surprised with the shoot. I said, just imagine Anna de Armas, his celebrity crush, in her lingerie, and then natural smiles all the way. But also we also love like creative couples who are happy. Like one of the things I've started doing is like beach shoots at golden hour, and couples who are a little bit more confident, a little bit more outgoing. And I've been really like blown away by some of the couples once they kind of let themselves like sort of really relax into it. They're in the water, they're cuddling up, they're splashing each other, and you get some stunning shots. I absolutely love to work with couples like that who are, just willing to try something different. It doesn't always have to be at your wedding venue. Let's just, celebrate your relationship and where you like to go. And absolutely love to have dogs come along too. That's one of my faves. I've done so many dogs on pre-wedding shoots lately. It's been gorgeous. More photos of the dogs though, which I need to work on. But
I think one of the most important things about, I'm obsessed with hands in photographs, and most photographers are, and it's only when you see how a hand should be posed, you can't then look at any of your other photographs that it's not in, and that is even just getting that sorted on the pre-wedding shoot and getting people to know what to do with their hands, where to put them and where not to put them. The fact they don't put them around someone's shoulder so they look like the Addams Family hand, because a hand sort of has to have an arm to make sense in a photo. Those things that people have never looked at, people when standing in a group will put arms around each other like that, and their jackets get ruched up and everything like that.
We had that.
They have no idea they're doing it. And so just addressing that, but also where to put their hands when they're posing together, etc. And that's where the sort of fashion style sort of comes in a little bit, all about the triangles, showing the silhouette of the waist, bringing your hands away, your arms away from the body. It's all sort of basic stuff. But once it's in there, once it's in the muscle memory, you don't have to work with it on the wedding day. You just tweak it. Completely.
Yeah, it's like, because we always, you work from tell as well. If you've got a group shot, and you've looked at a group shot, and one person has their hands just dangling where everybody else has got them placed. If you look at that person particularly, you can tell they're looking slightly uncomfortable because they don't feel comfortable because their hands aren't doing something. So that makes a difference in the photo. So you've got to get it right.
Yeah, so it's the practice run and gaining more confidence from that practice run, isn't it? I think that leads us nicely on in terms of confidence and sort of I would say maybe posing and learning how your body works. That brings us nicely on to what David does, which is boudoir photography. Now, I've heard this is a real confidence booster. David, boudoir shoots, do they really help boost confidence?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I can't think of a client that hasn't had a transformational experience during it. Quite naturally, everyone's nervous. For those of the people listening who are not sure what boudoir photography is, it's a fairly broad church, but generally it's sensual shots, usually in some sort of lingerie, often pre-wedding, so using some bridal lingerie and veils to wrap people in and things like that. What I do is very subtle. It's not too overt, because that's generally what my clients are booking me for. But we would start a shoot with a big white shirt, often the groom's, or a jacket of the groom's or something like that. And then we'll just work our way through the shoot to some black lingerie. We have a hair and makeup artist. So it's almost like a luxury makeover experience. So how often do you get a hair and makeup artist for an hour just working on you, just making you feel fantastic before you go into the shoot? And then they're there to touch up all the way through. But people are, people that are not confident about their bodies or have issues with their bodies, etc., clothed and unclothed, it makes a real difference to. And I've been shooting boudoir for about 10 years now. I sort of hung out with a load of the boudoir photographers in Las Vegas when I went to the WPPI over there, which is a big wedding photography conference. And I got into it, and I've done hundreds of shoots now, and it always sort of comes out the same thing. By the end of the shoot, people don't want it to stop. They genuinely do not want it to stop. I have to kind of say, right, it's time to get your clothes back on now, and the end of the shoot, because they just they visibly almost like float out of the room. It's an amazing thing to see. And then it's when the reveal comes, when they actually see their photos, they come back to the studio or we do it over Zoom, and they just can't believe it. They can't believe they look like that.
So if there's a way to boost your confidence and to get some really amazing shots for yourself, it's a boudoir photo shoot, basically. It
is. And, I say to people, it is the most personal gift. If you're giving it as a gift, it's the ultimate statement of you. It's the most personal thing you can give somebody is a set of pictures of you. And the grooms, as an anecdotal, once we did a shoot with a client, and she bought the groom's Timberlassa shirt, and it was beautifully wrapped, and she took an iPhone photo. She took about 100 photos of every single stage of the wrapping, unwrapped it, took it out of the cellophane, wore it on the shoot, and wrapped it exactly the same. So when he got his boudoir out on the day, he looked at the pictures and he couldn't speak. He couldn't work out how she was wearing his shirt that he was wearing that day for his wedding. Amazing.
Brilliant. And do you find that the rest of you, if I open the floor, is there any other sort of ways that you can think of confidence boosting for wedding photography? No.
I think, we mentioned the pre-wedding shoot already, haven't we, really? And Laura's got her posing guides. We've got something similar. We talk through, we've got a couple of books we can lend them if they want to look at that as well, really. But it depends what they want on the day anyway. If it is all about them wanting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos of them, then yes, perhaps there's something we need to look at. But a lot of couples, the kind of couples that book us, they just want to have a big party, and they want to set up, want somebody to photograph the party, enjoy themselves. And yes, there of course will be lots of photos of them. There will be lots of photos of other people as well. People having fun, people enjoying themselves, people having tender moments, emotional moments, all about the moments really. So the sort of kind of way that we approach the wedding day is it's you don't have to sort of worry about having your photo taken, because most of the time you won't even know. And
one of the things. Oh, sorry, Steve.
Sorry. Now I was going to say most. Couples often say to us the favourite photos are the ones they didn't know we took. Nearly always say that. Sorry, Laura.
No, the candid ones, absolutely. And I was thinking, Nikita, I was trying to think what else it could be. I think during the pre-wedding shoot, constant reassurance is sometimes really vital for certain couples. It really helps them to enjoy the moment if they know that they're doing something that is looking good on the back of the camera. But yeah, apart from that, I think just creating that relationship and making sure that they feel comfortable and they wear something that feels like them. I went out to take some headshots with a friend of mine earlier today, and I picked up a dress and it just didn't look like me, didn't feel like me, and I felt uncomfortable. So I slipped into something else that was same old boring black colours that I always wear, but it feels like me, it feels comfortable. And I think that's another part of the pre-wedding shoot, or any photo that you're having of yourself, is always just wear something that feels like yourself, and you'll be more comfortable when those photos are taken.
And
yeah,
to obviously my ex-partner owns a wedding dress shop, so I know more than is healthy to know of a man of my years about wedding dresses and the emotional journey that happens sort of 12 to 18 months before a wedding with multiple fittings and choosing and this type of veil and this type of lace and the different shapes of the dresses. So I do get to know what the client's going to be wearing or what the bride's going to be wearing, because, you know, if she's wearing a sort of quite a tight fishtail, then you would probably be doing more full length. You'd be looking at that leg position, etc., pulling the dress out, etc., those kind of things, because you want to make sure the dress looks as brilliant as it can do, you know. So the client again gets really, really enthusiastic about that, because, you know, you're showing some empathy and you're trying to help them look the best they can on their wedding day.
Amazing. Yeah, I think as well, I'd like to bring back to the point of wearing something that feels like yourself. You wouldn't buy a wedding dress if you didn't feel like it didn't express you. So there can be a lot of pressure on the big day, you know, having so many people around you and so many people to please as well. Mum wants this photo, Nan wants this photo, your sister wants something of just the two of you. Would you say that there are ways to ease that pressure, especially when it comes to the photography? Sam and Steve, I'll come to you on this one.
Well, just talking to them about certain aspects of the day and what they expect, particularly, and I think sometimes as well, mothers want the day to run as perfectly as possible because it's their daughter or their son's big day. I mean, for instance, we had a wedding recently where it was the mother of the bride, and it was her only daughter. So, you know, she had one go at this and she wanted to make it as perfect as possible. And she was just so stressed in the morning. So it's like just talking to her, just, you know, saying that everything will be fine. It doesn't have to be as perfect as you think it has to be, because everybody's going to enjoy the day regardless. They're all there to celebrate, to enjoy the party. And the daughter actually came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you so much, because you really helped this morning." So it's just being aware of all the different things and just seeing different things during the day. And if you can do anything to help, then, well, I always do try and help as best I can, really.
And I think, you know, we'll always try and accommodate people's requests because, you know, they're the customer ultimately and we're the supplier. But some things just aren't possible. They may have seen a photo they loved of a group and it was probably taken on a beach in, you know, California, and they're getting married at a registry office in Banbury. You know, it's just you got to be realistic about things. And no offence to Banbury, David, by the way.
You're quite right. You're quite right about Banbury.
No offence to the listeners from Banbury.
Absolutely, yeah, we love Banbury. But in all seriousness, you know, we always try and accommodate things, and we always try and listen, but we also try and manage expectations. So if they didn't want a particular, as you say here, particular elaborate sort of group shots, we sort of draw the line at doing hearts. I think we get thrown out of the Photographers Union if you do a heart, but still, you know, if they do want a particular, we can do it, but you've got to realise the amount of time it's going to take to set it up, finding people, getting people, as David said, getting the hands sorted and things like that. That might take 10 or 15 minutes, which we can do, but in doing that, it's 10 or 15 minutes where you're not doing something else, you're not perhaps having fun talking to people. So it's a case of managing expectations, not just for the bride and groom, but as you say rightly as well for the parents, step-parents in some cases. Often I've found in recent times it's the mother of the groom rather than the mother of the bride who perhaps has more sort of requirements or plans, really, perhaps because they don't have such an obvious role on the day. I don't know if that's the case really, but often I found, I don't know if you agree with me, Sam, but they tend to have more sort of demands on the day or more things they're looking for. I mean, rightly, you know, not in any kind of problem.
You have more to do with the groom's mother than me, so yeah, I don't really see that. So,
and I think regarding sort of groups generally, you know, we're documentary photographers, so we don't put group photos on our website, we don't put them on our Instagram, not very often anyway. But of course we do them. But what we do as part of the process of discussing them, the day, we always have a Zoom call or a meetings with our couples at least a week before the wedding to run through the final day, and we always ask for a list of the groups that they would like. And just to manage expectations again, we say typically, even if people are available, it takes typically about 3 minutes minimum per group. So
okay, so that's a really good tip. Yeah.
So if you're going to have 10 groups, that's half an hour.
we also do say though as well to couples, you know, if there are any, because obviously a wedding is a particular time when lots of members of the family get together that don't very often get together. So if there are groups of the family who would like a picture, but a picture that isn't on the group list that the bride and groom have asked for, then we're more than happy for them to come and say to us at some point during the day, would you mind just taking a group shot of us for us, and we're more than happy to do that.
But what we're not going to do is grab them over and say, oh, go and stand in that light. You know, we're not going to control it that way, because that's not our style. And one of the things I really hate doing on a wedding day is interrupting a conversation where you've got some people enjoying each other's company, having a laugh, or even, you know, hugging and doing and saying, can you just come over here for this group photo? You know, yeah. so it's all of those things sort of rolled into one, really. I think it's managing expectations. People understand the time it takes to do groups properly, and we do them properly, and also making them aware of, you know, if they do have all these group photos, what aren't they doing at the same time? And the last thing I guess I'd say is I guarantee the bride and groom get fed up before we do, because you know, they've been standing there for 10 or 15 minutes. They think, can we go to the bar instead? And I say, yeah, of course you can. It's your day. You do what you want. And it's their day. It's not my day. It's their day. Yeah.
I agree with you. And I think also photographers should have a secondary title as a wedding runner. I feel there's so much more to being a photographer, especially like bridal prep. It's happy chaos. Everyone's like very excited, often not in their own home. Who's got the deodorant? Where's my veil? And you're just like, okay, click. Veil, I think I saw it downstairs in the hallway. I'll go grab it quickly because everyone else is busy. Everyone's got a job. Bridesmaids are very preoccupied with themselves until the moment when they actually go down the aisle. They're just kind of, they're focused on getting themselves ready. There's often children running around. I've actually put together a bridal go box just because the amount of times somebody said to me, oh, I've got indigestion. Oh, and you could bring out the Rennie tablets. You're like, there you go, have some Rennie. I literally used that for myself at a wedding the other week, and the groom needed it as well. It's quite funny. I was like, oh, I forgot I've got some Rennie. And I said, look, do you want some of these? He was like, oh, lifesaver. And like Kirby grips. You cannot have enough Kirby grips at a wedding. The amount of times the bride needs to have... okay, 1 second, darling. Little man's come to visit. They can't get the back of the dress up because the buttons are so like small and detailed, and, you know, trying to do it with a fingernail or anything like that, you just can't get them done up. So Kirby grips, fantastic. Safety pins for pinning up the bustle, and nobody knows how to do it. We need David's crash course in all things weddings.
Needle and thread. I needed a needle and thread on Saturday just to tack up a little bit of the lace. So yeah.
Well, my repertoire, because I tend to do the groom prep whilst I'm doing bride prep, so my repertoire is a collection of handy videos to show how you tie a tie and how you tie a cravat on YouTube, because often people don't know how to do that. I've always got some spare cufflinks in my bag, because often they forget the cufflinks, and always at least 2 packets of extra strong mints, just in case they've had a few beers the night before.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah, I think what we're all saying is a similar thing, but I think what most couples forget is they don't have much experience often of exactly what happens on a wedding day. And, you know, as well as being a wedding runner, I think you sort of have to be a wedding planner. Certainly, you know, I'll give you an example. This wedding I'm doing on Sunday, which is in probably one of the most complicated weddings I've ever done, is we've had 4-5 calls about it already. So I know every single step of the way what is happening. So, for example, the bride, one of her big things was she wanted a shot getting into the car with her dad. And I've sort of had to explain to her, I've got to travel from Wandsworth to Paddington to the Greek Orthodox Church. And if my taxi takes a different route, the chances are I will arrive after her for the ceremony. So that can't happen. So I have to leave 45 minutes before she leaves to make sure that I'm there. I do have a second photographer. So every part of the day has been mapped out. Things like group shots. We're going to do those in the park behind the Savoy. You know, things like, I don't know how many people it's going to be. It's Sunday. I guess lots of people, if it's a nice day, are going to be out in the park. You know, those things you can't legislate for, but you can plan around them. So if this happens, we'll do this. If this happens, we'll do this. So I always say, fail to plan, plan to fail. That's my sort of motto.
Completely.
You cannot over plan for a wedding as a photographer. And, you know, I'm maybe suspicious, but, you know, I've got a wedding at Heads of House tomorrow. And the thing I will do after this call is I'm going to be typing up again the running order, the group shots, who's the key people, the phone numbers, etc. Because I have to have it in my format. And that's its way of getting back into my muscle memory. When I leave the house, our camera bag's already packed. I'll double check it again. And so I'm prepared, but also the couple are prepared for exactly what's going to happen, where I'm going to be, etc. And they really, really, really appreciate this. And I'm sure the other photographers on this call would agree with this. You know, 100%. It's about sort of managing their expectations, providing as much as you can for them on the day, but also making them think about things that they probably haven't even given the second thought to. Things like how long it takes to get a group together. You know, what happens if it rains? You know, what happens?
Been there.
Are you wearing a cathedral length veil in a force 9 gale? What's going to happen to that veil? You know, I remember doing a shooter in a castle, and the bride was having a bit of trouble with her veil, and it obviously hadn't been put in hard enough by the makeup artist. So I always say to brides, unless I see you grimace when that veil goes in, I know it's not in tight enough. And and literally it floated out of her hair, and I watched it go into the moat.
Oh no.
There was nothing that could be done, but luckily we got many shots beforehand. But you know, things about wearing a veil. If you've never worn a veil before, they have a life of their own if it's windy, and you end up being wrapped in them like a fishing net. And so this kind of lovely vision you've got with your veil flowing beautifully behind you, like this photo I've got behind me, that often doesn't happen. And, you know, it's just planning, and just working with them and having maybe 2 or 3 calls if that's what it takes. So we're all on exactly the same page. Once the wedding day starts, it's gone. That train is gone. You know, you can't do anything about it. We're on wedding time. It's going to start and it's going to stop at some point, and you'll shoot everything in between. But the more prepared you can be as a couple and as a photographer, the better.
Yeah. Oh,
that
definitely.
veil story is quite funny. Last week I was shooting a wedding, and my second said, "Oh, as you're close to the bride and they're together and we're doing bridal portraits, just lift up her veil." And I did it, and the wind caught it, and he said, "Okay, just do it one more time." I did it again, and the entire thing came out of her hair. It wasn't in tight enough. There was no grimacing to be done.
So
Brilliant.
The point is, veils have a life of their own. Grimace when you have to get them put in, but also your photographer has seen everything. I think is what we're saying here.
We keep
all
saying
of them
we could write a book.
It shouldn't happen to a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think all of you kind of touched on the group shots and how much organisation they take. Do you have any recommendations? I might go to each of you here for group shots in terms of, you know, how far in advance you should let your photographer know what kind of group shots you want. I mean, obviously, there is the opportunity to tap them on the shoulder on the day for your guests and say, "Oh, can you grab a quick shot of us here?" That's fine. But the formal ones, the ones that Nan's going to want on a mantelpiece, any tips for that?
Well, first off, to have a list. You'd be amazed how often that people they even think about it until we sort of say to them, really. And also to think about your family dynamics, because in this day and age, there's obviously lots of stepbrothers and stepsons and stepcousins, and you know, if you don't have that person in the photo, will that upset somebody else? You know, we don't know any of that kind of stuff, so they're kind of got to work that out themselves, really. So yeah, have a list, discuss it with your photographer beforehand. Ideally, have at least 1 or 2 people on the day that can help find people, particularly if it's a venue such as a hotel where people can go and check in or go to different bars or just wander around and get lost, because they do. And then I think the point we made earlier, just managing expectations in terms of time it takes to do them, really. They always seem surprised when you tell them it's at least 3 or 4 minutes per group minimum, and that's even if the people are standing there waiting to have them done.
I mean, because I often say, you know, I mean, I can talk, I can shout loud, but you find so often that because families haven't seen each other for such a long period of time,
especially the last 2 years,
especially just recently, they're in their little bubble and they're talking and they're catching up, so they're not they're totally oblivious to whatever's going on around them. So you can shout as much as you like and they won't hear. Whereas if you've got somebody who knows who that person is, they can actually go up and say, sorry, we need you for a photo.
But the whole sort of talking though and catching up, we had a wedding on Sunday, and I've got a lovely photo of the groom just before the ceremony reaching over and talking to the grandfather of the bride, who obviously hasn't seen for a couple of years, and it's just a moment of the two of them talking, shaking hands and catching up with each other. And to me, that's far better than any group photo they could have had, because it's a real life moment. So again, you know, you don't have to have hundreds of group photos. Of course, you'll have the family pressure to have some. Of course you do, but it's your wedding day. You have what you want.
I've found working from the biggest group to the smallest group has been quite a time saver. So if we start with everybody and then strip people out, and then I can say, right, you guys are done, and it saves people loitering around.
Yeah,
I say between 1 and 15 group photos, and if you want more, we can do like friends and less. The grandparents, they're more formal and they want to be done at the group formal time. But if it's your hockey club or golf buddies, we can get everybody on the dance floor later, because when they put down that they want 20 plus group formals, like Sam and Steve said, they'll get bored before I will. And I've had a bride say, actually, enough, I just can't do this anymore. Let's ditch it. So that's another way of doing it. And by splitting it up in that way means that it's not all done in one condensed sort of a time frame. And pre-wedding questionnaire, definitely any family dynamics to be aware of, and definitely list out the shot list. And Sam, what you were saying about getting people's attention, I find sometimes it's easier to ask the bride and groom for the actual names of the people in the family. So rather than saying bride's family, you can say, right, Julia over there. And when people hear their name, they go, okay, that's me. And that's been working better.
We do have the group that have the names of the people on that list, but as I said,
really distracted then.
Yeah. And actually, we've had an usher go up to one person at a wedding a few weeks ago, because we'd shouted and she'd not come over, and he went, and even him tapping her on her shoulder a couple of times, she still didn't turn around immediately.
In her own world.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I would say, I mean, I approach this slightly differently. I start off by sitting down with, generally, if people are booking me at 12, 18 months before their wedding, sometimes sort of 2 years before the wedding, we've got lots of time to talk about this. And I talk about when you come away from your wedding and you open that gallery of wedding pictures, what do you want to see? What sort of feel of pictures do you want to see at the end of the day? Do you want all the moments, or do you want lots of family groups? What is the most important? Everybody says, oh, I just want the moments, etc. Yet when you get the list, it's a very different thing. So I say to them, look, you've got an hour and a half to 2 hours of your champagne reception. That is the most important time period of the whole day in terms of photography, because during that time, you need to go for some couple photos. We need to do the group shots. We want to shoot the room. We want to shoot lots of moments and candids, and those moments have to be allowed to happen. Someone standing there drinking a beer is not a candid photo in my book. It's you're looking for a story, you're looking for stories to develop, etc. And you can only get so much into that sort of an hour and a half, 2 hour period. And so I say to them, look, here's 6 ideas for your shots. Bride and groom, bride's family, bride and groom, groom's family, bridal party, all the brides, girls, all the guys on the stag, all the boys, and a group shot of everyone. That's sort of your starting point for 10. Obviously, if you've got grandparents and you want a specific shot with those, etc. But I start with 6, and I say, using 6, I can get pretty much everything through an hour and a half champagne reception. If you've got an hour and a half champagne reception, if you give me a list of 10, 12, 15, 20, something's got to give. I work on my own generally, and I'm not going to be able to get all those candids that you want, or I'm not going to get all those. We're going to have to go away for 5 minutes instead of 25 minutes for the couple shots, etc. So we just educate them. I find generally the couples themselves aren't really that bothered about group shots, but the parents are very bothered about them. And so as a photographer, it's really important to check back in with your clients a week before the wedding, because I guarantee that group shot list will have changed substantially. Sure. And that's where you go back and I'm talking to them again about this timing, and okay, if we use 3 minutes, and I think that's great. That's if I say it's going to be 4 or 5, because people always go and feed their baby, or they've got to get something out of the car, or they've gone to the loo, or they can't be found. You know, and just put it in. So yeah, that's 15 shots. So that's you know, that's 45 minutes, and you've got an hour. How's that going to work? And it does come. And I sometimes have a must-have list of groups. You know, these are the, you know, got to have these, and then I have a nice to have. And the nice to have I bolt on at extra points during the day, or as Laura said, join on the dance floor or in front of a flower wall or something like that. So it's the educational side of it, and doing it like that, and don't mess around. Get people to help you. Get a groomsman or a bridesmaid, preferably both. Somebody knows one family, somebody knows the other family, etc. They have the same list as you. They have, like Laura said, you have the names of the people in the group. You know, bride's family could mean anything. It could mean bride and groom, mum and dad. It could mean bride and groom, mum and dad, brothers and sisters. It could mean bride and groom, mum and dad, brothers and sisters, partners, aunties, uncles. You know, group shot could be anything from 4 to 40 people for a bride's family. But you've got to find out what that is, because you've got to know where to pose them. Because if you've got them in a place where there's no elevations and you can't put people behind people, then, you know, you've got a problem if you suddenly get a shot of 25 people.
Having the bride and groom communicate to their families, and like the ushers and the bridesmaids, we're going to be doing group photos at say 4 o'clock. So, you know, if you are all in a hotel, you know, stay close, you know, do it afterwards. Just that small little message that filters through the families it's just been invaluable. And you know, some people, they have an order of service for their entire day, and they put it on there to say, right, we're going to be doing group photos at this time. I've had 150 people on some like ballroom steps going up, and the parents of the groom were missing, and they'd gone to their car, which was seemingly a long way away, or they were very slow walkers. And it was like, do I get them off the stairs? Are they going to be back any second? It was like, okay, we're about to take the photo, but they've just suddenly decided to go to their car. And it was, very infuriating. And that little bit of information is just, it helps. I'd give that as a tip for sure. And
the final thing I'd add is that be aware of children in photographs, and particularly babies. Because what will happen is, ironically, they won't look at the camera. So their parents will do everything to get them looking at the camera, which means when the baby's looking at the camera, the parents are looking down at the baby.
Yeah. Or pointing to your camera.
Or pointing to the camera. Or somebody next to them is trying to tickle them or talk to them. So you've got about 5 people in the photograph that are focused on the baby, but not on you. But then the baby's just staring straight at you, but nobody else is. That's number one. And they have no idea they're doing it. Absolutely no idea. And that's absolutely fine. It's not their fault. They just don't know they're doing it. And the second thing is, these days, you know, there are maybe 50 to 100 iPhones at a wedding. I've got them on my shoulder when I'm doing the group shots. They're lined up like a pack of 20 people, all trying to get my shot, which is I'm absolutely cool with. But I just sit back and let them do their shots. I don't even touch my camera because I wait till they get a little bit bored, and then I take the shot, because then everyone will be looking at me, not at their brother or not at their son or not at their wife, because you'll get eyes that are going all over the place, and it looks really weird in a close group to have eyes that are in different places. You want them all focused on your camera.
I always say, look at me, I'm the guy they're paying.
Yes. Going back to David's point about the children, I recently saw a tip from another photographer on Instagram, and I've 100% stolen this. But I ordered these little squeaky toys. They're like the inside of a dog toy, and it just does a little squeak. And if you squeeze that, the babies or toddlers, they all just kind of like look straight at you. So it saves the parents going, look over there. And it's been, I did motherhead sessions all over the weekend, and it was absolute like game changer. Everybody was looking. Nobody was like all over the place. It was wonderful. Really good tip. I thought that's really helped me. I'm definitely going to be using it for weddings.
Once upon a time, I did a bridal shoot for a big venue, and they had these beautiful, beautiful dogs. They had 7 dogs in flower collars and a beautiful bride. Now, these dogs were not looking at me. They were sniffing each other's bottoms. They were doing everything. They were not. It was a nightmare. So the only thing, I got someone to run behind me with some sausages, and they all went boom. And I got one shot. I got the shot. I will send it to you. It's fantastic. Somebody had a sausage in the kitchen, and they could obviously smell it. And they all eyes just changed. Bang. Bride luckily had the bride's eyes open. Genius. No comping. It was just, I only got 1 out of 50 images with them all looking at me, but that was the one, the sausage shot.
Oh, that's good tip. Good tip.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that. Like, never work with dogs. Never work with animals and children. Is that the phrase?
And the internet.
And the internet, yeah. I think what we'll do is we're coming up to the end of our session today. But I think what I'd like to hear from you all individually is what your best bit of advice is for couples planning right now when it comes to their wedding photographer. Laura, let's go to you first for this one.
Oh, I think definitely have a chat with whoever you're thinking about having as your wedding photographer. You will spend more time with your photographer than probably anybody else on that day. And if you don't get on with them or you feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, that will come through on your images and you just won't have a good day. I am a professional third wheel, and I absolutely click with all of the couples that I've worked with. And I think that's largely down to the lots of chats we have before they book. So just research and actually talk to the people before you book them.
Amazing. Steve, let's go to you next.
Well, I'd echo the do your research and recognise that there are different types of wedding photographers. You know, we're all different here. There are different styles, different genres. Recognise that first of all. I'd say, you know, we've had some brides recently where they've had a very, very detailed spreadsheet, rightly, for the plan for the day. I would say recognise that something won't go to plan. I can almost guarantee that something won't go to plan based on your timing, but don't worry about it. It's your day. It's your wedding day. Enjoy the day. You know, it's not a military maneuver. It's a wedding day. So, you know, don't worry about everything being perfect. Just remember that you're there to enjoy it with the friends and family and the people that you love. Most of all, of course, your partner. So really don't stress if things don't go 100% as planned. Enjoy the day, because it goes like that. It literally just fly by.
Brilliant. And Sam, have you got a tip?
I think you've just said it. Don't worry if something doesn't turn up or if something breaks, or just go with the flow. And if somebody upsets you on the day, just move away, take a breather, and not worry about it, because alcohol involved always turns people into something else. Just step back and just enjoy it, because as Steve said, it goes so quickly. I mean, all of our couples say that the day just went so quickly they didn't remember half of it because it just was like a blur, even with all the planning and everything. And we say that to them over and over and over again, because it's just one day. It's one day and you've got to make the most of it.
Absolutely.
And finally, David, what is your top tip?
I echo what both Laura and Sam and Steve have said. Absolutely. I mean, it falls into 2 camps. You've got to love your photographer's work. You've got to really be drawn to their images, and you've got to be able to see yourself in their images, if you see what I mean. There are 50,000 wedding photographers, I don't know how many in the UK, all with a slightly different style, some with a more overt style, some that, but you've got to love the images, and then you've got to love, I don't mean love the photographer, but you've got to really, as Laura said, we are like a third guest at your wedding. We are a guest. You dress like a guest, you behave like a guest, etc. And you've got to really, really sort of bond and be very, very comfortable with your photographer. If you're comfortable with your photographer and confident, and you love their images, it's an absolute winning team.
Completely.
Yeah.
I thought of one more, if I'm allowed one more.
Sure, go for it.
Go for it.
When you're looking at photographers, I'd always ask to see a real wedding that they've photographed, not just some stylized shoots, because with all respect to, going to a lovely venue with a beautiful bride and groom, and you've got complete control of the day for a stylized shoot, that's not a wedding day. A wedding day, as we know, lots of things go wrong. Lots of things can happen. So, always ask to see a photographer's real wedding, ideally a whole wedding, rather than just a few images on Instagram.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
and preferably 3. I would say, if you're see 3 full weddings. If they've seen 3 full wedding galleries from you from the minute you opened your camera bag to the time you put your camera bag away, warts and all,
Exactly.
You're going to get a pretty good idea of what you get on the day. And don't just meet one photographer, meet at least 3 photographers, have at least 3 meetings, preferably face to face. I know it's a rarity these days with everyone doing Zoom, but I know before Zoom came along, I was always meeting my clients. There's always be a cup of coffee here, but technology and modern life means that often we use Zoom more. But it's just make sure you're meeting 2 or 3, because it will be very, very obvious after meeting 2 or 3 who you want to book.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got, as you said, you've got to be comfortable, because the photographer's with you for a long time. We're with our couples for between 12 or 14 hours on the day. So, you see brides in quite a state of undress. So they need to be comfortable with you being around and not wondering at certain points of the day where you are, because then they're not enjoying the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fabulous. Well, that brings this episode to a close. We hope you found it super, super useful. And thank you so much to Sam, Steve, David and Laura for joining me today. What a fabulous panel. You can find all of their details in the show notes on guidesforbrides.co.uk and in the caption below. If you're watching us over on YouTube, we will also put their Instagram handles so that you can follow them on Instagram. And once again, thank you so much for listening to Guides for Brides, the wedding podcast. We'll be back with our next episode in a couple of weeks' time, and you can follow us on social media in the meantime at Guides for Brides. Chat to you all soon.